I'm not a political commentator. I'm looking at it from a financial and economic side of it. We said that we thought this was a bad idea going in because you'd have no leverage once they close the strait. That's exactly what's happened.
Zach Abraham, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
All right, let's talk about Trump's Easter message as we race towards this red line. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up into one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the effing strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. Okay, I have a theory on his language and stuff that I shared on my regular show, but your thoughts, sir?
I thought the tweets were extraordinarily concerning. The first thought that I had when I saw "Glory be to God" as I sat there and I went, sounds like what extreme Islamist jihadis yell when they blow up passenger planes. Not very comfortable with that. Then the whole praise be to Allah and crazy effers. I'll tell you what it sounded like to me.
Okay.
And this is somebody that's voted for him 3 times.
Okay.
Sounded to me like he has absolutely zero leverage, zero control over the situation. He's throwing a fit.
Okay.
I got to be honest. Look, majority of our clients are on the conservative side. I know I might have somebody that leaves us because I just said that. I'm not a political commentator. I'm looking at it from a financial and economic side of it. We said that we thought this was a bad idea going in because you'd have no leverage once they close the strait. That's exactly what's happened. I don't understand how we walked right into this. There is no way to open the strait. Putting boots on the ground doesn't help, because if boots on the ground helped, you wouldn't we're going to put up boots on the ground. Great. How are the boots on the ground going to be safe on the ground if you can't even get an up-armored ship through the strait?
Yeah.
They go, we can. If we can, why haven't we?
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And let me just tell you, if you're concerned about a ship's a little bit safer than a guy in boots on the ground. Right? So, and then I put all of that in this deal of, what are we winning here? Like, when do we declare victory? Because I've been told that all the critical things that we were going after, that we've already hit them.
Yeah.
So why are we there?
Okay, let me play devil's advocate on the president, because I think you and I both agree and have come to believe that he has earned a little bit of trust when it comes to foreign affairs and strength, peace through strength. So when I see this, I think, that's a pretty big ultimatum to give Iran, right? And the consequences of blowing up the power plant and the bridges and all of that for the future of Iran are pretty immense. I think we both agree the president doesn't want to do that, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't work. None of this matters, because if Iran doesn't have a card to play, right? So you've got to think about it from their perspective. The whole reason they want a nuclear weapon is so they've got leverage in geopolitical situations.
Right.
If you're not going to let them have a weapon, we've argued that the Strait of Hormuz is their weapon. There is nothing that you're going to blow up in their country that's going to let them let go of the strait.
The
it's
oil
not
fields?
going to happen. No, it doesn't matter. Because if you've got all those assets in your country, but you have no ability to stop people from coming in and taking them from you, it doesn't matter. You've got to be able to hold a cudgel over. You have to have a sword of Damocles that you can hang over the head of people that would seek to invade your country and take what's yours, right? And so a power plant doesn't matter. This is a regime it's going to be really bad for their citizens. They just killed 30,000 of them.
Yeah.
They don't care. You think they're going to stop because they're worried about the quality of potable water?
Yeah.
I just, again, look, I am on our side. I am cheering for a good resolution. I want to get rid of the whole freaking regime. What I don't want to see is, I don't want to see the sand over there turn red with American boys' blood and get stuck into a conflict that goes on for God knows how long. And I just don't, if you're going to put boots on the ground, if you're going to pull out in the next week and say mission accomplished, we've greatly inhibited their ability to be offensive in projection, fine, good. I think the world's a better place with less of those guys in it. But if you're going to put boots on the ground, I'm just terrified of the implications for U.S. men and servicemen and women. And then furthermore, what greater win? Again, somebody has to tell me, if we're going to do that, what is it that we're looking for? If you tell me regime change, I don't know if you've been keeping up on current events, but that hasn't worked very well.
Yeah.
In all the different places we've tried it. Why do you think a country 3 times the size of Iraq, with infinitely more difficult topography, is the place where it's finally going to work? I just don't. Again, I want to be with you.
Yeah.
I want to be with them. I want to come in for the home team on the big win. I don't understand it. I just can't wrap my head around it.
Well, and also when you come in and you say it'll take us 3 days and now we're into weeks and weeks and gas prices are, I mean, my thought with the people were making a lot of his language in the post, but I think he needs to, if he's going to set a red line, he has to be willing to make good on the threat, right? And I think that if I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, he wants them to think he is crazy enough to do this, right? Crazy enough to go in there and absolutely scorched earth. And so maybe that's why he's using that language, because he doesn't want to do it, but he needs them to believe and he has to be willing to do it. So he almost needs to come across as like psychotic, right? Where they're like, oh, he's psychotic enough to do this.
Totally. And I think that he, like with his ability to buck the popular trend and pull the trigger when nobody thinks he's willing to, that definitely plays in his favor. I just think nobody's sitting around. Okay, I think that we're correctly judging the hand from Trump's perspective. Now we need to jump to the other side of the table and realize, what is the one thing that Iran is resolute in not doing? They are not willing to give up the strait unless their conditions are met. And if that costs them power plants, if that costs them bridges, they don't care, because if they can't hold the strait, they can't protect themselves.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
I also think, though, with military life, and I never want to seem as if I'm being flippant with the lives of even a single member of the military, but war is hell, right? And it is a reality. And you know that as the commander in chief when you send them in. And I'm thinking about cost benefit, right? So, I mean, this is #1 state sponsor of terrorism. You know, they have their pockets of groups in other Middle East countries that will carry out terror attacks against, their proxies against Americans and American allies. And they've been this big looming threat. Is there an argument to be made that even if you have some loss of military life now, which is always horrible, that if you can finally tame Iran, the benefits of peace that will come from that would far outweigh any sort of, again, horrible but military loss now?
Yeah, that's one of the nasty realities of government and military intervention in general, meaning nobody wants to be a part of these conversations, but any responsible leader has them. And I guarantee you the administration is, meaning here's the thing that we want to accomplish.
Right.
And let's run a cost benefit analysis. What are we willing to give up to get there? If we get rid of the Iranian regime, the entire world is a better place. Full stop. Right? For people saying things like you attack them unprovoked, their whole existence is a provocation.
Right.
That's literally why these guys get up in the morning. So I mean, there is nobody that is more ready and who is advocated for themselves to be taken out more than this regime. Again, the question just to me comes back to cost benefit. What are we willing to spend in effort to do that? And my whole thing in saying that is, if you're going to look at me and say, look, we can permanently, here's the other thing that we got to remember. Getting them out is one part. Who takes over?
Yeah.
Right? That's another. And what we found out in Iraq, actually, is that was much more of a critical discussion, right? We were so focused on our ability to remove the thing we didn't like, we forgot about the vacuum that it was going to create, right? So where is there a plan there? Again, I'm not an expert. I hate the idea of just reinstalling a relative of the Shah, right? Like that, I'm just like, come on.
What are they calling him? The Gayatollah? They've created this piece of propaganda that this guy's gay, which just for a moment of levity, which is totally a strategic U.S. government sort of thing to like.
Because if he was gay, you wouldn't know. That'd be the tightest held secret of all time. I can't believe that the guy's actually, because that's like a death sentence in that culture.
That's why they're doing it, right? I mean, maybe he is, but that's why they want to sort of erode trust and love and reverence for him in Iran. Tuesday is their deadline, so that's soon. So we'll kind of know whether the president is willing to make good on the threat. I mean, if he isn't, that's pretty damaging for, I guess, the level of fear and respect that he'll have on the world stage.
Not if he gets what he wants.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right?
I mean, obviously, but if he doesn't get what he wants and he doesn't make good on the threat, then it's sort of like, do his words mean anything anymore?
So again, we're all spitballing from outside the deal, and I'll just tell you what my feeling is listening to him over the weekend and listening to the quote unquote threats that he's made. I think that he's buying time for an action that he's preparing to take.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because if you were prepared, like they're not going to open the strait. Okay. It's not, they will open the strait if we give a massive concession, which I don't think Trump is anywhere close to giving. Okay. So I think you can take that off your bingo card. They ain't going to open the strait before the deadline.
Okay.
I don't think Trump, he's been issuing, I don't even think they're negotiating, quite honestly. If you look at some of the stuff you hear coming out of Iran, they're laughing at every single thing that comes out. And they're like, does this time work for you? They're being, I don't think they're negotiating, which makes sense to me. We've said from the very beginning, whether right or wrong, they view this as an existential threat, and they view their ability to keep the Strait of Hormuz shut as more important than anything. They think that they're completely smoked without it. Right.
And
that's
they are.
their perspective.
And they are.
Yeah, I would agree with their assessment.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Absolutely. So if they capitulate, then great. But I think that he was just buying time and extending things out for what he plans on doing, because again, it's Trump, and that's part of what makes him so effective on the world stage is he's so hard to handicap. That being said, if he was anybody else, I would tell you he's 100% planning on going in there, because you just wouldn't mobilize the money and effort it takes to move the amount of stuff they're moving in there. You wouldn't do it unless you were planning on doing something.
Yeah.
So
I do agree that his unpredictability or seeming unpredictability is one of his strengths. And that's why I don't look at that post and get freaked out like, oh my God, he's lost his mind. I look at it and I think, art of the deal, he's got a plan. Hopefully.
I don't think he's lost his mind. What I did think, though, is, to me, that was not a strength tweet. Okay, if you've got leverage in a situation, in his shoes, just my first read on it was, oh, he's starting to figure out what a tough situation this is. That was my first impression. Yeah. And it just felt like it's kind of like the lady doth protest too much.
Yes. Yeah.
I wish somebody would have grabbed the phone from him at that moment, because I don't think that tweet helped. I think it confirmed to the Iranians that they've got him frustrated.
I don't know. We'll see. But it does read a lot like some of the Iranian propaganda where they're like releasing the videos of "we shall rain terror on the United States homeland," and it's videos of like nukes hitting the Statue of Liberty and stuff. So maybe he's just speaking their language, trying to get to them. Who knows?
Yeah. And let me reiterate too. I don't think that there is any. These are horrible people, and I'm not worried about him offending them in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I don't think any of that's. My whole point was assessing it from just a situation perspective, just going, yeah, if you had a lot of leverage, if you were in a strong position, I don't think you'd be tweeting that.
Yeah, let's hope that there is an actual plan. All right, let's do some watchdogging. I think the whole fraud thing is catching on. So there's been, ever since Nick Shirley in Minneapolis, I think this is a renewed effort to expose fraud, and by some jurisdictions to take it seriously. So King County has had a huge fraud issue that was started to be exposed really over the summer of 2025. A lot of it had to do with like juvenile diversion and money going out that wasn't being tracked. Money going out that there was no accountability for it. And this was across several systems. So one of the areas where the auditor for King County said there wasn't accountability was on some of the money for human services. So buckle up for this. A Seattle City Councilwoman wants them to look into potential fraud in the city's homeless spending, which to me is like going to be the holy grail of fraud, is in the homeless industrial complex. And I think it just shocks me that you have a Seattle councilwoman who's like, yeah, we should really look into how that money is being spent. So she says that one of the same entities with King County where they've found all this lax oversight is the same entity that gets $400 million from the city of Seattle. Much of that towards homelessness, and much of it goes to the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, which is just a ridiculous entity. She said, it's not to say that our organizations are not doing good work, but in light of these issues at the county, we would be remiss if we did not conduct our own due diligence. I mean, you have to say, I'm glad she's saying it.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, because what this is going to come back with is a report that every dime is accounted for, and what we need to do is double the budget. Yeah. Right? Like, look, this is something that I just so desperately wish people in this state and writ large in this country understood.
Yeah.
Okay. There isn't fraud there because everybody in government's evil and they're trying to screw you over.
Right.
Okay. There's fraud there because there's zero incentive there for there not to be.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you understand, once you've run a business or a budget of any significance, you realize that managing the pennies and the small amounts that add up to a lot over time is very arduous and it's very difficult when your life depends on it. Okay. When your life doesn't depend on it, I can guarantee you it's not happening. It's like this superintendent they just hired that sounds like a really sharp guy for Seattle Public Schools. Yeah. He came in right out of the gate, saw the preliminary numbers, and he goes, we'll cut this deficit in half in a single year, no problem. He's like, it's waste. This is pathetic.
Yeah.
Okay. And what people need to understand is we're not sitting there saying you're evil.
Yeah.
Or that those politicians are evil. What we're saying is it's not a good idea to elect a 44-year-old ideologue that's never had a job to run a multi-billion-dollar budget. It's not a good idea. Don't do it. And when you select people like that, your budget will turn into a leaking sieve. I flat out guarantee. How do I know that? Because I look and I evaluate companies for a living. Companies that do not have an endless source of funding, that things have been too good for it too long, they start leaking money like a sieve. Why? Because the internal games of politics, when you get to a point where a corporation becomes like a government, in essence, that them living to play another day has no correlation to the quality of job they're doing, right?
Yeah.
You and I don't live that way, right? Our quality of life is very correlated to the quality of work that we're putting out.
Yeah.
These people are not. And that's why you see these arthritic, older, larger companies begin to bleed money and you watch their margins collapse and they begin to act just like government agencies. Why? Because when your perception is that tomorrow is guaranteed, which is what it is when you've got a government contract, a government job, or you're working for one of the big, huge tech companies or big, huge, conglomerate, multinationals. When tomorrow is guaranteed, then it really takes the onus off of survival type questions. How do we manage? You're incentivized then to play political games. And therefore, the people that end up getting moved forward in that setup are ideologues. They're not practitioners, right? Because practitioners are only really needed when rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
But when we're living in a gravity-less environment, an ideological environment, which is what government is and which a lot of big corporations are, it's the ideologue that gets promoted, not the practitioner. And so what do we have in Washington state where we haven't had real political competition for 40 years? You've got a government full of ideologues, not practitioners. So what would I expect to see? I'd expect to see ridiculous new bills that just trounce over constitutional jobs or constitutional rights. I'd expect to see a complete irresponsibility and poor stewardship in managing the budget. I'd expect to see blowing out deficits. I'd expect to see all fraud. I'd expect all... And it isn't happening because everybody we've elected is a criminal. It's happening because everybody you've elected is incompetent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say the danger is in awarding public funds, not based on necessity, but based on ideology. We're giving money. A lot of that happened in 2020. And it's one of the big issues with King County is these were money, race and social justice programs. And so they gave out money, to show that they were true to a certain cause or ideology. And when you do that and it's not giving out money because it's really needed in a place, there's almost not this built-in need for transparency and accountability of that money. And that's really where some of these West Coast and blue state, like Minnesota, blue state governments have gone wrong is, they're giving valuable taxpayer dollars to things that the government should never be funding in the first place.
Well, and then you look at homelessness, right on the face of it. And look, guys, when you look at things through my lens, or if you hear me talk about things, you might sit there and go, man, that sounds like a miserable way to look at the world. He's constantly, and it's really not. I'm a really positive person, but you begin, when you operate in financial markets, there's something that Charlie Munger once said, who's a longtime assistant partner of Warren Buffett. And he said, you don't need to show me the outcomes. You just need to show me the incentives. And why does he say that? Because people will do what you incentivize them to do. At the end of the day, full stop, they'll do what you incentivize them to do. Okay, when we look at politicians in Washington, what are they incentivized to do? They're incentivized to do more of the same. It's worked. They stayed in power. They get paid. But then you go look at an issue like homelessness. Okay, you know that there's a ton of fraud. Why? Because by the definition, there's a considerable amount of U.S. government government money being thrown at it, Washington state government money and federal money. And you're dealing with transient people, meaning there's no ability to have any realistic oversight. Where there is no oversight, there is fraud. Full stop.
Yeah.
So if you don't think this urgency and this focus on homelessness, now, again, I'm not accusing the politicians. The one positive thing I will say about the politicians in this state is that as I have dug deeper into the legislative issues that we're currently dealing with, I am more and more convinced that this is not a product of ideology for most of them. This is a product of ignorance. These people really are that ignorant.
Gosh,
they are that dumb.
Okay.
They really are. I am 100% convinced. And they're all, well, we got to throw money at this home. They might not even be the ones doing it. It might be their buddies that have the construction company that's got the deal with the city. We need more of this homeless problem. When you've got a bunch of people, and I put our governor in this, people that have never accomplished anything, that are products of a system, that have never signed the front of a paycheck, that have never been responsible for a P&L, they are going to believe ridiculous stuff like this because they don't have any experience. They're incompetent.
Well, and when success means that they're going to put themselves out of a job. If you're getting $200 million from the government to deal with homelessness, and you want to keep getting $200 million from the government to deal with homelessness, then you need to make sure that there's still homelessness. And so it's a self-fulfilling cycle.
What is there? There's an old saying, which is, never be surprised what a man can believe when his livelihood depends on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is, if you want to, how could they possibly believe that? Ask yourself that question.
Yeah.
Then look around the corner and go, you got any ties to that? Any way you're winning from that? Because somebody's winning from this homelessness money being spent.
Right.
And it ain't the homeless.
Well, the numbers show it's not the homeless. There's more homeless every year. Billions of dollars for nothing.
I know. And now we think that now we want, that's the other thing. You look at government and go, where else on earth do you watch the incineration and complete lack of responsible for invested capital, and then the prescribed answer is give them more?
Yep, give them more. Give them more. And the voters often in Seattle proper do it. They're just like, okay, you need more money for the kids in the schools while our test scores are lower than ever. Oh, I mean, you have a government in Washington state that believes they measure success based on money spent, not on outcomes. The more money we spend, the more we care about that issue, the better we're doing. It's like, no.
The better we are. We're nicer because we spend other people's money, not our own, by the way, but other people's money. Yeah. You know, the one positive that I see here, Brandi, though, is this, and I'm not trying to be Pollyannish when I say this, but when you look at the abysmal results that we've had in this state, and you look at the complete incompetence across the board of running it, if you could switch that around, I think the strides and improvements you could make here would be fast and big.
Yeah.
Fast and big. If you could get, and I don't even care, you and I are on the same, I'll keep repeating this. I don't care about R&D. Find a bunch of Democrats on your side that have experience running things, that are serious people that want to make improvements. Yeah. If you can just get me that, I'm happy. This doesn't need to be an ideological war. I want the boat to not sink. That's all I'm asking for. Yeah. Right? And it can be done.
Right now, we're bailing fast. All right.
Oh, man.
I feel like I'm bailing the boat out with a spoon. I'm like,
I know.
Get it out, a little teaspoon. Oh, gosh. All right. Well, we'll see you next week. We'll probably talk a little bit more about the latest fight and the fight against the millionaires tax. There's some legal maneuverings, the income tax millionaires that are happening there. All right, Zach, I guess we'll see which of us is closer to correct on Trump's Iran posturing tomorrow.
I hope it's you.
I do too, because I love America and I want to be right. Both of those things.
And I want him to be right. I want this to go right. I'm with you. I'm worried that it's not.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Zach.